Beacon Video presents the 1989 Bus Conference at the Gospel Light Baptist Church in Walkertown, North Carolina. Let's join the conference now with Dr. Jim Schaefer as he speaks on What Can I Do for Discipline?
I've been told that 90% of our discipline problems are the fault of the leader. Now, we don't like that. We don't like to admit that, but it's probably pretty close to being accurate. We can do a lot to prevent a discipline problem. And that's where I want to start with you this morning in talking about preventive discipline. How do you keep these problems from happening in the first place? That's always where we need to start. And if we think about these things enough ahead of time, we can plan around a lot of discipline problems that just are not going to happen. So we want to start out with preventive discipline. Now, first of all, we want to talk about preventive discipline in regard to the environment. When we talk about the environment, we're talking about the room, the setting, where the lesson, where the teaching, where the children's church, where the Sunday school lesson is going on. That's important. Sometimes we don't pay close enough attention to the environment, but the environment itself can do a lot to make a discipline problem or to avoid a discipline problem. First of all, just simple things like temperature. If it's too hot, people are restless. They can't sit there long. They can't take it in. I remember for a number of years I taught in the public schools, and I taught in one of those little portable buildings. We didn't have air conditioning, and it was hot in Jacksonville, Florida in the month of May. And believe me, once you got past noon, you really didn't get a whole lot out of the kids anymore, and you didn't get a whole lot out of yourself anymore, because it can be exhausting. It can wear you out. So the temperature is important. If it's too cold, that can be a problem. I remember one day it got real cold at another school where I was teaching. Again, it was in a portable. We had one little pot belly stove, and I had watered the plants the night before when I left. Some of the water had run through on the shelf. The heat had been on in the room since 7 o'clock that morning. At 8 o'clock when I came in, there was still ice on the shelf. So it was cold in there. And believe me, the temperature makes a lot of difference. And I let those kids do anything they could to keep warm. They could sit on their feet. We took turns moving up close to the pot belly stove. I taught with my overcoat on and wool socks and everything all day, trying to stay warm. But it counts down on what you're able to get done. Lighting. Lighting is important. Beautiful lighting in this building. It helps you. It focuses attention up here on the platform. It helps you to pay attention. Anything you can do to help with the lighting situation. If you're teaching a situation and there's windows behind you, it's going to be hard for those people to continue to look at you because the light's going to bother their eyes after a while. Lighting is important. Seating, how the people are seated. You want to be careful about it if it's too crowded. That you can't sit in tight, crowded conditions forever and ever and ever. Having enough space is important. And again, you say, well, when we bring in a lot of people, we just overflow and we don't have enough space. We have that problem sometimes too. But where you can and when you can do something about it, you need to. Sometimes we have overflow crowds. We have to let the kids sit on the floor. You have that happen in your church? Now, fortunately, we have carpeting in our rooms, and so it doesn't work out too badly. But you know what some of our folks do? They have the kids sit on the floor in the back of the room. You are asking for trouble. How would you feel if you were a little kid sitting on the floor in the back of the room? You can't see anybody. You can't see anything that's going on up in front of the room. How long do you think a kid's going to sit there and not cause you a problem? Not very long. You are asking for trouble. And you say, well, it looks like anybody would know to do that. Listen, I've been in this thing long enough to know that a lot of people don't know to do that. That's just the easiest thing to do. They're the ones that are coming in last, and you just, sit right down, right where they are. No. Stop the whole thing. Get them up there in the front. where they can say, you can prevent discipline problems. Something else in seating you want to remember is be careful about having real long rows with just an aisle on each end, because it's always going to be the kid that's right smack in the middle that's going to be the one that needs some special help and some special reminders or what have you. Keep your rows small with aisles in between so you can get around and get to the problem makers easily. You'll save yourself some problems just by seating them right. Another thing that you want to be careful about is just general conditions in regard to decor and cleanliness. Now, I'm ashamed to tell you this, but I've been in a lot of Sunday school rooms and a lot of rooms where they have children's church programs, and it's not clean. That creates a slovenly, careless atmosphere. And maybe a person isn't really conscious of it. Maybe a child doesn't say, oh, there's a lot of dirt over there, but subconsciously that tells you something, that these people don't really care. It's not really all that important if they haven't even cleaned up the place. You can create a down attitude by the atmosphere, the general cleanliness, the decor, the colors. All of this plays an important role. Have you ever visited any classrooms, any schoolroom classrooms? Some rooms you walk into, and it's beautiful. You said, boy, I would like to stay here and be under this teacher's instruction. You walk into some rooms and kind of dingy, nothing much up on the walls. The bulletin boards have been up there for 6 months, and the pieces are hanging off of them. And again, subconsciously, it can bring on problems for you that do not need to be. The size of the group, I think, has something to do with discipline. The larger the group, the more discipline you can plan on having. There's just something about it. They feel more free to do things and get into mischief if the group is bigger, because there's a better chance of not getting caught. Now, I don't think kids actually sit down and calculate that in their mind. But there's just something subconscious on it that they just feed in on. So wherever you can keep your group smaller, that'll help. I think a group of 50 is plenty large group. Now, you say, do you have all groups 50 in your children's church? No, I'm sorry. We have all the same problems you do. Sometimes on a big day, we have 125 kids crammed in one room. But I'm talking idealistically, and I realize that, and nobody has ideal anything. But at the same time, that still doesn't excuse us to where if we can make the situation a little bit better, that we don't go ahead and do it. Don't say, well, it's just hopeless. That's the best we can do. You'd be surprised when you brainstorm some of the things you can do to keep improving your situation. But you've got to be alert. You've got to be awake to some of these things. And if you just list them down at a conference like this, you could go back over your list and say, hey, we could do that. We could try that. Maybe that would help. That's the value of coming to some things like this, where people can share some of the things that are being done that you can take home and put to work for you. Another thing that's very important to prevent discipline problems is for the workers to be alert. I find that often people working with children are really asleep. They don't see things that are happening. I mean, kids can be doing stuff right under their nose, and I don't see it. I don't know what's going on. You've got to be alert. Your eyes have got to be going everywhere all the time. And believe me, your kids will pick up on that fast. They know if you watch them, if you know what's going on or not. In fact, they size you up. And they look at you, and if you look kind of like you don't kind of know what's going on, boy, they're going to pick up on that in a hurry. You've got to look alert and look awake and look like you know what's going on, even if you don't. Fake it. But don't let them get the idea that you're not with it. Well, these are some things that have to do with the environment, and just getting to this area now of the things you can do to prevent discipline from the standpoint of leadership. I think one of the things that happens often is people They do a certain job faithfully for days, weeks, months, and years maybe. And you know what happens to all of us sooner or later? We get a little bit dulled. We don't have quite that sharpness that we once had. I think we need to be careful about that, because if you don't understand how serious and how important it is, the job that you're doing, it's going to show in the way that you go about it and the way that you do it. You become just a little bit careless, and you'll let down just a little bit here and just a little bit there, to where you're just really not as sharp as you used to be. And that will bring on discipline problems. They can sense that about you if you're taking sort of a so-so attitude now about what you're doing and the importance of it. Let God constantly burn that into your heart, of the importance of what you are doing. This is the work that Christ left for us to do when he left this earth, to go out and reach people for him. That's the most important business in the world. And we know that in our hearts, but sometimes we get a little bit dulled in our minds and in our attitudes, and it can become routinish, and it can become something that we just do because we've always done it. And before long, you can find your heart growing a little bit cold, and you not being quite as sharp about what you're doing, not quite as determined, not quite as effervescent, not quite as excited as you used to be. And that's all going to show. And it can lead to discipline problems just by your attitude. There's been put a lot of time, a lot of money, a lot of work into getting those kids there. We, ladies and gentlemen, are answerable to God for how we spent those moments with those kids. We've got to be at our very best. And that's one of the keys. One of the things we can do to prevent discipline problems in the first place, by keeping our own hearts warm, keeping a close relationship to God personally in our lives. Nothing takes the place of that. Another thing that will help by way of personal leadership is to know ahead of time what you expect or what you want. I think sometimes we go into a classroom and we haven't really decided in our own hearts and minds what our standards are going to be. I'm talking about things like talking. Will the children be allowed to talk when they come in, or won't they? If they are, when are they going to be allowed to talk? When are they not going to be allowed to talk? Are they allowed to get up and get out of their seats? Or are they not allowed to get up and get out of their seats? If they are, when is it permissible? When is it not permissible? What will be done about bathrooming and getting water? What is my plan? What have I got in mind? What is the plan for dismissal when it's time to leave? I think sometimes we expect kids to do things, and we've never really thought it out in ourselves what we want out of them, what we expect. Now, it's important for you to sit down ahead of time and plan this out in your mind, maybe even on a piece of paper. This is when they can talk. This is when they can't talk. This is when they can get up. This is when they can't get up. And have it in your mind, some kind of a plan, because it's awfully hard to ask them to live up to something you haven't really figured out yourself what you want. And having that in your mind, having a plan ahead of time, will help tremendously to avoid discipline problems. Because you can tell them what you expect. You can tell them, this is how we do it. This is how we're going to do it. This is what will work best for everybody. Now, I'm not saying that you won't make mistakes, or you won't plan wrong, or you won't find some things down the road that you'll need to change. But at least you've gone in there with a plan, and that's important. Another thing that leadership can do to avoid discipline problems is to be prepared. Be prepared. Careful planning of every part of the program from the minute it starts to the minute that it ends. Now, sometimes you meet some spiritual giants that say, well, I just like to go in there and let the Spirit of God lead me. Can't the Spirit of God lead you on Saturday to plan that thing? Is the Spirit of God limited to Sunday morning to show you what to do? Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that sometimes God just won't show you at a certain time to change something, and I believe in being flexible in the power of the Holy Spirit. Don't get me wrong. But for you not to go in there with a plan, it's not because you really want to be led by the Holy Spirit. It's because you're too sorry to sit down and make a plan. And then you have discipline problems, and then you want to say, you kids, you just don't cooperate. Honey, it's your problem. It's your fault. You go in there with a plan, the whole thing. You can pray and say, dear Lord, now I'm trying to get my plan up for tomorrow. Won't you please show me? He can show you then as you write it down. And you can go in there, and I'll tell you something else. You'll feel a lot more secure about what you're doing if you've got a plan. Plan everything. Plan the song service. How many minutes are you planning to sing? Put it down. What are we going to do after we get done with the singing? Hey, and in regard to the singing, what songs are we going to sing? I see a lot of folks like to go in and say, well, what would you like to sing today? Big deal. I'm going to let you choose the songs, aren't I, Mr. Nice Guy? Boy, you get to choose the songs. You're going to turn yourself into a discipline problem in that class. Those kids, I want to sing Jesus. No, we just sang that on the bus coming. I don't want to sing that, so I want to sing. You've got a mess. You get in there. You're the leader. You get up there and say, boys and girls, today we're going to start by singing, Jesus loves me, this I know. Let's stand as we sing it. And something else important, that pianist needs to be ready. She can't be first starting to look through the book to see what page Jesus loves me is on. She needs to have a list all ready to go. She needs to have pinch clothespins or paper clips or something in there so she can turn to those pages quickly. So she can get to those songs quickly. And no long introductions for boys and girls on the piano. No. Hit the chord and sing it. That long introduction, save that for church while the old folks are still getting up and still trying to find the page. Kids aren't like that. They're ready to go. They're ready to go. And if you're not ready to go, they're going to leave you behind somewhere. No, plan it. Plan it out ahead of time. Be ready. Have that pianist ready so they know what's going on. Well, have a plan for the order of events. Know about how long it's going to take to sing, how long it's going to take the offering, and prayer, and announcements, and every element, whatever elements you're going to use. If you're going to have an object lesson that Sunday, all right, its object lesson's going to take about so many minutes. And have those people ready. You tell the worker, listen, as soon as we sing God so loved the world, right after that, that's when we're going to have your object lesson. And whether you're singing that song, they should be moving up there in place and got their stuff ready to go. The minute you're done with that song, bing, they're ready to go. Now, if you leave gaps in there and you wait until they dig around the back of the room to get their objects together and walk up there to the front, meantime, your kids are going to start talking and they're going to start doing stuff because they're kids. They're kids, and they're not going to wait. Their minds are lively and active, and their bodies are lively and active, and they're going to find something to do. That little boy, while she's walking up there, he's going to just pull the girl's pigtail or poke somebody or do something just for the fun of it, But if they're ready to go, and they're moving right to the next thing, and the attention is directed to the front of the room, you're going to save yourself some problems. Well, everything should be laid out, ready to go. If you're using a flannel graph lesson, all right, figures and everything should be in here in order. The board is ready. If you're using a chalkboard, you shouldn't have to be saying, I wonder where I put my chalk. Anybody see where that chalk is? What do you think is going to happen to those kids while you're doing that? They're going to fall apart. You say, okay, now you kids get quiet. Don't be making all... Yeah, it's your fault. It's your fault. Because you weren't ready. You didn't plan. You didn't get everything all laid out, ready to go. And look at the time you'll save. Look at the precious moments you can put to work for the Lord. You could have 2 or 3 more elements in your program if you didn't waste so much time. You could get more done for the Lord. See, we have to answer the Lord for this time that he's given us, beside the fact that it'll help us to avoid problems in the first place. Careful planning. Oh, it goes a long way. Whatever it is, have it ready. The offering plates. Everything, ready to go. Another thing that you can do as a leader in the Children's Church program is to be alive and to be enthusiastic. Now, we talked about that yesterday in qualifications for workers. If you're dead, if you're slow, the kids are going to be distracted with other things. Be sure that you're lively and full of energy. Even if you feel tired. I know lots of times it seems like on Thursday night at camp, that's when it really hits me. The week is wearing on, and I'm really tired, and now it's time to lead the singing. I run up to the platform. Why? Because I'm going to do everything I can to fight that urge to, just say, do it. Hey, what is it we're doing? We're singing songs to glorify the Lord. The Lord. Does he deserve a lazy, listless, tired, I can't do it? Absolutely not. He deserves everything we've got. To sing and to praise him, to glorify him, and to teach our kids that God and the Bible and Jesus Christ and praising him is the most important thing in the world. You know why they don't think so? Because we don't act that way. That's why. I can remember as a child, and I went to basically good fundamental teaching, Sunday school, every week. But you know what we did in most cases? We'd sit down in a little circle, sit down at a table maybe. We'd open the Bibles, and they'd read some scripture, and we'd talk about it. And we'd go home, and that was it. Now, don't get me wrong. I appreciate anything anybody's ever tried to do to help me spiritually. But I have to be honest and tell you, by the time I was graduated from high school, I thought the Bible was a dull, dry, old book. Now, I didn't say that because it's not spiritual to say that. I didn't say it, but that's what I really felt in my heart. You know why? Because nobody ever got excited about it. They didn't act like. I can remember the first time I ever saw a flannel graph lesson. I was elated. I said, wow, this is terrific. And the teacher acted like she was excited about it, and that it was meaningful, and that it was something that we needed to hear, and she was excited, and we got excited. No, your enthusiasm will have a lot to do with it as to how many discipline problems you have. Because if they're excited about what you're doing and their attention is focused well in the front of the room, they're not going to be looking for somebody to whisper to or thinking about those pictures they have in their pocketbook or in their pocket that they could pass around and show to somebody. A lot of the problems that we have are our own fault. Another thing that will help in keeping from having discipline problems is the kind of relationship that you have to the students. I sometimes see some people trying to work with children that really, folks, they're kind of grouchy. You know, they're always fussing or crabbing at the kids. I mean, it's just their way. Some of the times the kids haven't done anything. Say, oh, no, we want everybody to sit up straight and tall and look right this way. And they start chewing them out. I thought, what'd they do to deserve that? No, listen, you be kind. Be friendly. Be fair. Be loving. They can tell that. But be firm. Oh, you've got to know in your own mind what you're going to tolerate and what you're not going to tolerate. But you can be firm without being a crab. I mean, you just tell them, I love you to death, but you can't do that in this church. You're just not going to do it. We're just not going to tolerate it. And you can smile, and you can be friendly, and you say, you can't do it. That's it. I'm not going to let you do it. Try to deal with them as individuals. That'll help you. Why should the kid that's good and doing the right thing have to listen to you crab at one or two who are cutting up all the time? Take that one or two out in the hall and give them up the river if you have to, you know. But don't make everybody be exposed to you grouching at everybody all the time. That sometimes you can create problems by just the atmosphere that you create in the room itself. But being fair, being kind, being friendly, being unmovable, but be positive. Be positive. You can say negative things in positive ways. If you're wanting to remind them about sitting up and being quiet, You could just maybe tell one of the other workers in the room, did you notice how good our kids have been lately? Oh, listen, they've been sitting. Last week I noticed how well they listened to the message. Now, maybe they were terrorists before they got to that part of the program. Don't talk about that. But remind them about how good they've been or what they've done that's good. Now, I don't expect you to stand up there and lie. Maybe they've been terrible. But even that you can say in kindly, positive terms. Many times with little children, you see, maybe say, okay, now let's have everybody get their Bibles out. We're almost ready for our Bible time today. Look at Billy. He's got his Bible out. He's ready to go. Good job, Bill. At Mary, she's ready to go. And, those little kids, they're going to hustle to that. They're going to, boy, you get praised for doing it. And they're going to respond to that positive kind of encouragement. Instead of picking out the ones that haven't started to get their Bibles out yet and getting after them, praise the ones that are doing the right thing. You see, and you create a positive attitude in the classroom that will help to have good relationships with your students. Getting to know them by name, getting to know them personally will help. When you know somebody personally, you're less likely to give them a hard time. It's just something about it. And if you show them that you love them, that you care about them on an individual basis, they're not going to give you as hard a time as if they don't know you or they think you're a grouch or a grump or a complainer all the time. So be positive as much as possible. So we can prevent discipline problems by the environment. We can prevent discipline problems through leadership. We can prevent discipline problems through the program itself. Keep it moving. We mentioned it before. Keep it moving. No dead spots. Keep that thing organized and ready to go. Those that are participating, ready to go. Keep it varied. That will help to prevent discipline problems. If you do everything the same old way, week after week, time after time, always teach the lesson using the same exact method, it's going to get old after a while. And even the best method, you can run it in the hole if that's all you use, time after time. So keep it varied. How? All right, use flannel graph, use pictures, use the overhead projector, use puppets, use acting out, use the chalkboard, use chalk talks, use object lessons, use flashcards and word strips. Get your group participating. Maybe you even want to use some drama. The sky is the limit. The kind of methods that you can use to vary your program and still get the job done in an interesting way. And I'll guarantee you, when your students come in and they see this set up, or maybe they see the little puppet stage over here this certain Sunday, or they see certain objects sitting here, they're looking. They want to know what's going to happen here today. What's going to happen here today? Can't wait. Boy, I want to see what's going to be. I heard just last Sunday a man was telling me about a little girl, his little daughter that's in my wife's 5-year-old Sunday school department. He says she loves to go to your wife's class more than anything in this world. And all you have to do on Sunday morning is say, Hannah, wake up. It's time to go to Sunday school. Mrs. Schaefer's class in Sunday school. She comes out of that bed like a shot of a rocket. She's at the table dressed and ready to go and can't wait. Now, that's the way it should be for kids when they go to church and Sunday school. Why? Because it's done in an interesting way. She has a plan. She has pre-session planning. The minute they walk in the door, there's something for them to do. Something for them to do. Something for them to get involved with. Something that ties in with the main thrust of the lesson or the story that's going to be presented that day. So many times we create problems because we don't have anything for the kids to do when they get there. And we let them run around and in and out and up and down the halls, and, well, we're just waiting for everybody to get there, so we just let them run wild. Hey, you can prevent discipline problems by having a plan, something for them to do when they come through the door. And by the time it's time to start, you'll have a much more settled situation. They've already had that big run time from the bus, perhaps, to coming in, and it's all right for let off steam and all that during that time, but they need to start to settle down when they come in the room. That'll help you. That'll help prevent worse problems down the road. Well, we can say all these things about preventive discipline that we want to, but I have to admit that no matter what you do, the very best of circumstances, sometimes you're still going to have discipline problems. If you've done everything perfectly by way of preventive, you're still going to have some that are going to create problems for you. Now, why is that? Well, first of all, it's because we as human beings are very complex people. We're not just spiritual beings. We're not just physical beings. But we have social characteristics. We have emotional, physical, mental, spiritual, emotional, social. We're complex, and all these parts are playing on other parts. For instance, when you're sick, you feel like a great spiritual giant? No, especially men, right? Men, when they're sick, they're sick. Now, women, when they're sick, nah, it's too bad. You still got to do everything anyway, ladies. Still got to feed the baby and all this stuff. Well, I think all of us will admit that when you're sick physically, it tends to pull you down spiritually. That's why pastors go to hospitals and visit people, because you tend to be low spiritually. Now, not everybody's that way. All of us know folks that are sick as they can be, and they're on top of it spiritually. But how about emotionally? Something happens that angers you, or something happens that makes you afraid. Maybe some tragedy that brings on emotional stress in your life. Is that going to affect you? Sure it is. We see it all the time with kids whose moms and dads have gotten divorced at school and at church. And they go through a lot of problems at home, and sometimes it comes out in discipline problems in the classroom. Now, what are you going to say to a kid like that? All that kid needs is a good spanking. No, all he needs is somebody to love him and reassure him that he's going to be all right. See, a lot of times we just look at the outside, but we don't take time to find out why that person is the way he is. And lots of times when you really find out, you say, how could the kid be as good as he is? The one that we had just thought of as being a terror. No, lots of times, you see, we live in a bad world out there, folks. You know that. You people go out in the bus routes, you know that. And it's going to get worse. It's not going to be better. And you're going to have more discipline problems because of kids that have emotional problems and social problems and all these things that are happening out there. It's going to take its effect. Mental problems because of drugs and things like this. It's going to be more and more and more. You can look for it to happen. Now, that's one of the very important things that we need to start with, is when a kid is misbehaving, try to find out the reason for it. Just don't treat the symptoms. Try to find out the cause. Usually, there's a good reason for it, for them acting and doing like they will. Another reason that we're going to have problems with kids, in spite of everything that we can do, is because of the fact that kids are kids. God didn't make them miniature adults when they were born. That's why God gave kids parents. That's why God gave kids teachers and bus captains and some folks to guide them and to show them and to tell them what's right. Don't look for them to already know how to do everything that's right. Realize that, hey, you're one of the factors that God is using to teach them. They're not always going to be like that. I mean, there's not a one of us here that couldn't think of times when we had to be disciplined because we did something that we shouldn't do. Don't expect them to already have grown up and come through all these things when they're 6, 7, 8, 10 years old, even teenagers. Emotionally, they're still children. We've got to understand them if we're going to be able to really work with them. Well, lots of reasons for them. We can't really take time to go into all of them. There's such things as discipline at home and at school. It's lax nowadays in many, many homes. The child doesn't know that he has to do what he's told to do. You can go and visit in a home, and sometimes the parent will tell the kid 6, 8, 10 times while you're standing there, Johnny, pick up your toys. And he doesn't pick up his toys. When you left, the toys still weren't picked up. Now, what do you expect when you tell Johnny, sit down? He hasn't been taught to follow commands that adults have been giving. So, well, my kids know to do that. Yeah, but these aren't your kids. You see? And we've got to understand where they're coming from, and it's going to take a lot of patience. Now, that doesn't mean that you don't make Johnny sit down. Don't get me wrong. Remember what I said before about being firm and unmovable? Yes, Johnny, you're going to sit down. You have to. We are going to insist that you do it. You have to be firm, no, and they'll catch on to that too after a while. The old sin nature is another reason why we're going to have discipline problems at best. Sometimes the kids just got the devil in them as big as a mule. That's all you can say. And we're going to have discipline problems. Sometimes it's because they just need to get saved. I've seen kids that were under conviction, and they were just miserable. Their behavior was terrible. I had a boy like that in the elementary office just last week. He's sent to the office for discipline. He didn't usually have to come to the office for discipline. But here it was, a couple days in a row. Choom, choom. I mean, that bad. He had done so many things, the teacher finally had to land him in the office 2 days in a row. And finally he said to me, Dr. Schaefer, he said, could you talk to me about getting saved? And he was ripe. He was ready. And it was really, his behavior was really just conviction that he was experiencing in his own heart, that he was fighting and finally surrendered and made a profession of faith in Christ. So you see, there's lots of reasons for it. Something else is something that we don't often think about. The weather has a lot to do with discipline for kids, how well they behave. You ever notice when it's rainy outside how restless your kids are and noisy and wiggly? Or when the wind is blowing? I've seen it even inside rooms where there were no windows and they couldn't possibly know what was going on outside, and they're still that way. There's just something about the atmosphere that sets kids off when it's raining or when it's really windy outside. So understanding these features will also help. Well, now the question is, what do we do if discipline problems arise? How are we going to handle it? What can we do to help and to solve the situation? First of all, like I said before, being alert is the key. You've got to watch and see what happens. Now, it's important for you, as much as possible, to have adults spread around in the room. Maybe one here in the center on the third or fourth row. And then we'd like for one, maybe back over here. There's quite a group of people over here, right kind of in the center there. Sometimes you have to ask a kid to move so adults can plant themselves in strategic spots. But by sitting spread out and being alert, they can take care of an area around them just by their presence. You know, there's something about it when you're close to the teacher. Everybody gets real good, right? Sure. Adults do that when they get close to the pastor, right? Oh, boy, pastor's here. Be real good, you know. Something about it. When you see the policeman on the street or on the road, on the highway, what's the first thing you do? You look at the speedometer, right? Sure you do. Come on, don't you look so pious out there. You do. You look at that. You want to be sure you're doing right, you know. Ooh, there's a policeman. All right, kids have that same idea when there's an adult planted right in the middle of the group. You will help. Now, if your adults all want to stand in the back corner and talk or something, you know, you don't need them. You don't need them. Whenever I walk into a room to be a helper or to aid, you know what I look for? I look for the place where there is no other adult. And that's where I plant myself. Now, by planting yourself down in the middle of a group like that, you can control just 5 or 6 chairs in every direction around you. Maybe not behind you, but in front of you and each side of you. And if a child, you're going to have some kids that are not going to pay attention at best. I would say if the child isn't easily in reaching distance from you to tap him or something to remind him to pay attention, if you have to climb over 6 or 8 kids or climb back 2 or 3 rows, you're going to cause more commotion than it's going to be worth to get the attention of that one kid. If it's just one kid not paying attention, sometimes it's better not to disturb the whole group around to get his attention. But a good rule of thumb to follow is when he involves a second person, as soon as a second person becomes involved in the inattentiveness because they're going to play with something, then you take action. Now, what kind of action do you take? Run over them and grab them by the nape of the neck and start shaking them, right? That's what some people do. I heard about a teacher that was doing that in the hall one day. She was shaking a kid, and she said, "Johnny, I think the devil's got a hold of you." He looked at me and said, "I think so too." Now, what's the reasonable thing to do? Where's the reasonable starting place? Well, speak to the child. Wouldn't you like to do that, somebody to do that to you if you were doing the wrong thing? Wouldn't you like somebody just to tell you in a kind way? That's the way you start. Don't grab them and jerk them and all that kind of stuff. Just say, "Please be quiet." Just remind them. They're going to need reminding because they're children. Don't let it eat you up inside to where you're all mad and ready to chew them up in little bits. They're kids. And they're going to need guidance. And they're going to need guidance from you. And they're going to need reminding. But first of all, speak to them. Be alert to what's going on. And if you don't have enough workers in the room, just kind of move around a little bit. I'll tell you something else that will help is if the person who's teaching up in front will move around too. Now, I'm kind of locked in here. I would normally move around more. But I have to use the microphone, so I'm going to stay kind of planted. But when I'm teaching kids, I'm going to move around. I'm going to be back and forth, and up, down. In fact, sometimes I come right down. Somebody has to get up in the front of the church and go out. What happens? Until they disappear through that door. Then you go back to listening to the preacher again. Why? Action is more demanding than just words. So if you're moving around, you're putting some action into it, it'll help prevent it in the first place. But back to hints about helping. You can correct a lot of it even while you're teaching. You can correct discipline. Maybe you don't. You say, "Well, you always talk about all these helpers. You don't know how few people we have in there." All right? Yeah, sometimes we don't have very many in a department either. And sometimes the correction does have to come from the person who's actually teaching. But wait a minute, you'd be surprised what you can do. I mean, while you're teaching that lesson, and you're going to town, you've got your Bible open, and you can say, well, it's just amazing how much just by easing on over where the trouble is. Just keep teaching. Or just teach your heart out. Just be going to town, preaching your heart out, and just ease on over where you see commotion, something going on back there. You'd be surprised how good they'll get as you ease on in that direction. And you don't have to say anything. Even the same way in the song. If you've got somebody that's not singing, and you're trying to get, "Come on, everybody, you kind of go like that. I wasn't singing, and he wants me to do that. So you see, we can do a lot of discipline without ever saying a word. Now, if you've got massive noise, maybe the whole thing kind of goes out of control. You know what you can do? Get quiet, everybody. No. You just get real still. See how deathly silent it got in here? And you weren't even doing anything. You see, just by being quiet and silent, you can draw the attention back. So you can control a lot of it just by doing a few of these little things as you go along in teaching and preaching to them. I think the way you act has a lot to do with discipline, too. If you act like you expect good discipline, I think that you'll have good discipline. Lots of times I see people and they say, well, if he's a great big boy, we'll get that great big burly man in there, man. Those kids will really behave when old George gets in there because he's such a big guy. That doesn't have very much to do with it. I've seen little women this tall control senior boys. We have a little lady who teaches in our academy. She's taught out there for years. Her name is Becky Curl. I've seen Miss Curl put her finger on the nose of some of those boys that were a foot taller than she was and tell them how it's going to be. And I don't think it crossed their mind not to do what Miss Curl said to do. You know why? Because Miss Curl already had it in her mind what her position and what her authority is as a teacher in that classroom. And she was kind and she's sweet, and she was fair, and she was nice, and she was friendly, and she was firm. And you don't monkey with Miss Curl. She tell you how it's going to be, and you do it that way. But she's sweet and kind and nice while she's doing it. I've seen big, burly men that couldn't make little kids do what he told them to do. It has to do with your mental attitude toward it. And you can't go in there all fearful and say, well, I don't really know if I can make these kids do it or not. When you go in like that, they size you up in a hurry, and boy, they can tell just by the way that you act. So look like you're firm. Look like you mean business. And that will have a lot to do with it. Another thing you need to do is go as far as you can, as far as necessary to correct the situation. Don't let them win. You have got to win. Now, be careful you don't get yourself out on a limb that's a no-win situation. That's where you have to have wisdom about what you're demanding. If you're demanding something that's impossible, you're probably not going to win. I think one of the keys to it is dealing with one kid at a time. Don't wait until the whole group goes out of control. If there's one person that's starting something, deal with that one person. Deal with them on an individual basis. And that way, it doesn't grow and get out of hand. Now, when you are dealing directly with a given situation, there are several levels that we have to think about. First of all, we said before, speak to the offender. Johnny, please stop talking. Mary, please put away your pictures and pay attention. Susie, stop poking Sally, please. All right, speak to him. Most of the time, that will be enough. You say, well, what if it isn't enough? What if she keeps on? All right, the next thing I'll do is I'd move the seat over closer to where the teacher is, or next to a worker. That's why if you have some workers in there, and you can say, hey, let's have Mary sit right over here next to Mrs. Brown. That'll help, you see. That'll help. Just moving their seat, putting them by a teacher. Maybe you need to take them out and talk with them outside the door. Say, look, Johnny, I've told you 5 times. I'm not going to continue to keep telling you the same thing and you not do it. You must find me. Now, why? Why do I ask you to do this, Johnny? Suppose we just let you talk. If I let you talk, I've got to let everybody talk. I know it's not bad to talk, but there's sometimes you can't talk. This is one of them. While the lesson is going on, we've got to have your cooperation. Talk with them privately. Try to reason with them. Try to get them to see why. In an older child, they can understand why, and often they just don't stop to think about what the results is if they continue to do whatever they feel like doing. Another thing that you might want to do by way of discipline is let the offender stand in the back of the room. Now, I'd be real careful about letting them stand outside the door or someplace where they're not supervised. I heard about a school teacher did that one time. The kid went out and let all the air out of her tires slip back to the place where he was. The teacher never knew the child ever gone out and done that until they got ready to go home that night. Now, you don't want to leave them unsupervised. Besides, you can get in trouble doing that. But let them stand for a while in the back of the room. That doesn't hurt anybody to stand up. It's not painful until it gets to be like 15 minutes or so. in one spot, then maybe it starts to get a little painful. But it's not anything that's really going to hurt them. And they're away from the others, and yet they know that they've done the wrong thing when you take that step. I think it's important to have, as a next step, someone that's in charge of the overall program that you can take that child to. In our church, I'm the head of the children's churches. I do not teach normally. I do not lead the singing normally. I'm not normally in a department. Mostly, I'm a floater to be around, to make sure things are going right, to meet emergency needs, and most of all, discipline. When they have a child that they've spoken to several times, taken them out and spoken to them, maybe had them stand in the back of the room, and they're still not responding, they bring them to me. Now, fortunately, I have an office there because I'm also principal of the elementary school. I have an office right there. I take them into my office. I have them sit down in the chair out in front of my desk. I sit behind the desk, and I take out a piece of paper and a pen. What is your name? I write down. And I'm not real smiley and all friendly at this point because you see the kid already is giving somebody a hard time. Now, I'm not going to be ugly to him, but I'm not going to make them think it's a picnic either because they've had to come and see me. I try to be firm enough and look firm enough till they, would rather maybe not do that. All right, I ask them your name, who is your bus captain, and why did you come to church and Sunday school? Why did you come? Now, 99% of the time, they can give a good answer. Well, I came to learn about God. I came to learn the Bible. I came to learn about Jesus. And I ask them, do you think you can really learn about the Lord and you're talking and cutting up and misbehaving? Most of them can think that through and say, no, I guess I couldn't. And you'd only keep yourself from learning, but you keep those other children from learning too. Hey, look, people in this church have paid a lot of money to have this Sunday school in this church. We can have buildings and lights and chairs, and people have worked hard to get you here, and teachers have studied hard to learn the Word of God and to teach a good lesson. And we're not going to let you come over here and spoil what we're doing. Now, we love you, and we want you to come, but you can't come over here and spoil what we're doing. We're not going to let you do that. And I make it very plain to them, we're just not going to tolerate it. It will not be tolerated. You have to, when you come here, you're going to be naughty. You do all that at home or someplace else. But when you come over here, you make up your mind you're going to do what the folks tell you to do because that's the only way we can teach you. How would you like to come to a church and Sunday school where we let everybody do just whatever they wanted to do? I said, that'd be such a mess you wouldn't even want to come back. Many of them can understand this kind of reasoning. And I think it helps with a lot of kids too. They just don't stop to think about what the results is of what they're trying to do. Well, you say, what do you do if that doesn't work? All right? I always tell them when I deal with them in that office situation that I have a piece of paper with your name, your bus captain, the date. If you have to come back anytime soon because of discipline problems, you're going to force me to talk to your bus captain about it. Now listen, I'd rather not do that. He loves you so much, and he's so kind to you and does so much. Don't you know you'd break his heart if he knew you didn't behave when you got here? I use the old bus captain appeal. It works with most of the kids because those kids, they love you folks. Many of those kids, you've shown them more attention than their parents have. And they love you. And most of the time, I don't see them again, at least for a long, long time. Occasionally, I see some right back again. Now, if I tell them that I'm going to see their bus captain if they land down here in the office again, I do see the bus captain if they land in the office again. Now, it's very important that whatever you say you're going to do, you do it. Otherwise, you're a bluff, you're a pushover. And they're going to know it. They're going to know it. So be sure that if you say you're going to do it, you do it. Well, if I have to see the bus captain again, most of the time bus captains know what's the situation in the home. They'll respond in different ways. Some of them have said, oh, Dr. Schaefer, don't worry about it. I'll take care of it. I'll talk to him, and I don't think you have any more problems. Sometimes they say, I'll talk to their parents about it, and you won't have any more problems. Sometimes talking to the parent is the worst thing to do. It depends on the situation, and that's where the bus captain has to come in on the situation because he knows best of all what the situation is in their home. Now, we have found that sometimes even that does not help. And it's usually the kid that's giving us a hard time in Sunday school and church is also the same kid that's already got that bus captain ready to pull his hair out. If they're really that disruptive and that naughty, they're disruptive and naughty everywhere. It's not just when they get there. It's on the way back, and what have you. In that case, sometimes we have had to just not pick up that child anymore, at least for a time. Usually we give them a block of time, maybe a month, or then let them try it again, this kind of thing. You say, well, that's terrible. Don't you know we're trying to get people here? Well, that's not the first thing we're trying to do. We're trying to get people saved and under the sound of the gospel. And if that child disrupts the class and you've got to sacrifice that child or the class, the answer is obvious, folks. You can't sacrifice a whole class of learning for the sake of trying to reach one incorrigible child. Now, don't get me wrong. I want to reach everybody we can. But on the other hand, you can't let one person destroy everything you're trying to do. These teachers have studied and prepared, and they're vibrant, and they're interested, and they're on fire, and you can't let one person destroy what we're trying to do. The ultimate is to get them there and under the sound of the gospel, not just get them there. That's not the only thing there is to it. There's a purpose behind that getting them there. Well, just a few don'ts, and then we're going to have to close. Number one, don't give the impression that you're afraid that they might not obey you. I mentioned that. Number two, don't make threats you can't fulfill. We already mentioned that one. A third one, don't let the situation get out of hand. We've already mentioned that one. Fourthly, don't spank or physically rough the child. You can get in a lot of trouble doing that. First of all, you don't need bad advertisement for your church. Bus captain spanks child last Sunday in church. You don't need headlines on Monday morning coming out like that. You're not their parent. You say, well, the parents have given me permission to spank the child. I still wouldn't do it. I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't do it. How are you going to prove that in court? And you say, yes, you told me I could. And they say, oh, we never did anything of the like. How are you going to prove that? It's just not worth the risk. And don't manhandle a child roughly and throw him around and shake him around. I saw one worker one time holding a kid upside down with his head in the trash can. Folks, I mean, and they weren't playing. It was because the kid was naughty. That's kind of bizarre discipline. A stack of encyclopedias on each hand in the back of the room for 30 minutes. That's kind of bizarre discipline. Running the track field. 10 laps, kid, because maybe he's got asthma or heart trouble. And he drops dead out there on you. What are you going to say then? So be careful. Be careful the kind of things that you give out. And then, fifthly, the fifth don't is don't take it personally. Don't say, hey, this offends me as a person, so I'm mad at you and I'm going to get you back, kid. Don't take that attitude. You're going to have to take a lot for the Lord. Many times my wife has come home with ripped hose and bruised shins where some of her 5-year-olds were kicking and misbehaving. Don't take that personally. Smile and buy the new pair of hose and do it for Jesus. May God bless you. It's a wonderful opportunity that God gives us to reach these kids. And I hope that these few hints might help you to do a better job. Dr. Beebe?